Today we're taking a look at Judges Guild, Installment R from April of 1978. Please stick around. I'm AC Mountaineer. This is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Today's video continues our look at the products of Judges Guild and their bi-monthly installments for subscribers. This is Installment R, which contains the Village Book #1 and the Judges Guild Journal. Hope you enjoyed today's video. The April-May bi-monthly subscription mailing contains something interesting here. This is called Village Book 1. It was the first of 3 products. They did a Village Book, a Castles Book, and an Island Book that would have hexes with pre-drawn content on there for the judges to use to sort of drop in wherever they wanted to in their home campaign. And of course we have the newspaper here. This is issue number 9, also known as, obviously letter R, and again, you open up and read your newspaper. These are, as I mentioned before, quite fragile, but there's, these are things that you can find out there. If you're interested in collecting these yourselves, you're going to be able to find copies that just keep your eyes open and look for them. So Installment R, 1978, Bob Bledsoe, of course, is the driving force for Judges Guild, and then the Village Book, they give credit to Bill Davis and Mark Summerlot. The cost of this, if you weren't a subscriber, would be $3.40. And you got 2 things. You get the newspaper, the Judges Guild Journal, and you got the Village Book itself. Here is our journal. They continue at this point to have a really good relationship with TSR and to use the D&D trademark, right? Published by the creators of fantasy game aids for Dungeons & Dragons. They mention up here their circulation at this point is around 2,200, and later on we'll talk about in one of the articles they mentioned their subscription count. So the top cover says, I think it says, Erroneous Grog Awakes, extra. I think that's maybe a reference to the Conan-like figure here. And here's their Judges Guild staff list. It's pretty substantial compared to what it was only about four months ago. And they had a big article in a prior journal where they gave you details about what all these people did, and you'll see later on they're continuing to add to the head count at the company. On the first page, they have a list of coming conventions. PinCon 78 at Widener, Origins 78 at the University of Michigan, Gahana 10 in Gahana, Ohio, Gen Con 11, this time at University of Wisconsin Parkside, Pacific Encounters 78 in San Mateo, California, and RockCon 4 in Rockford, Illinois. So good list of conventions there. They announced a contest. It says it continues to amaze us the material that we see submitted, how high quality is. As we near our birthday, we want to do the proper thing to support it. We want to launch a contest on dungeon design to celebrate that. 6 parts, 1 for each level, 1 through 6. You can enter all the categories. They'll be judged and prizes awarded separately. Then, interestingly, a whole article, 2 pages, on behind the scenes, the making of Star Wars. You know, it was a big phenomenon at that time in history. They had the Stormtrooper on a prior front page of the Judges Guild Journal, and now they've got this really detailed article here talking about the movie itself. And I thought that was pretty interesting. They have a lot of really detailed information about it. It talks, there's an interview that was done with George Lucas. He's talking about his thinking. Originally, he wanted to do a Flash Gordon movie, he said, but then he couldn't get the rights to that. But he learned that the Flash Gordon was inspired by Edgar Rice Burroughs, who wrote Tarzan, and John Carter, Warlord of Mars. And then he learned that Burroughs was himself inspired by a guy named Edwin Arnold, who wrote a book called Gulliver on Mars in 1905. So he read those and he sort of said, I had this idea. He had the idea that he wanted the part of the story to be between an older man and a younger man, the older man being like a teacher, right? That's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obviously spaceships and ray guns and fighting sequences and stuff like that. He also said, I knew I wanted a princess, but I did not want a damsel in distress. And I always thought that Princess Leia was a great female character because she has, she's such a strong character throughout those 3 movies. It gives you information about where they shot the different scenes and all the way through production, and different people were involved in different things that they worked on all the way through. So I just think it's kind of cool cultural, historical piece to see how much space they gave here to Star Wars, and they've got some cool photographs in here. They're not great to see even in the original, but we've got you can't really tell in the front of that is Luke and Han Solo talking in front of that. I think it's a Y-wing. Then we've got the Jawas walking onto their little Jawa sand speeder. The Tusken Raider attacking Luke Skywalker, and then this scene from the beginning where Darth Vader is coming on board the spaceship, and those guys are getting blown up, it looks like. Prodigious plate mail is the letters column, right? So again, these letters are really more than letters. They're almost like submissions of material that could be used or shared with other judges. So the first guy here calls himself Harry the Gnome, Kevin Garbleman, tells him what a great job he thinks Judges Guild is doing, and says he's got interesting clerical spells that he's discovered he wants to share. And they're pretty good. They're pretty short. He doesn't give much detail, right? Just a blurb. Hope dispels the fear spell and protects you from fear for 3 turns, him and his party. See truth, right? Like true seeing allows you to see the true shape of any polymorphed or otherwise sort of illusion protected creature. Hear truth allows you to detect lies, which is renamed, I think, but it becomes a spell. Cause fire will cause any flammable material, even if wet, to come to blaze. Repair rope repairs rope, even if broken or breaking. Age, I'd call this one more like Fountain of Youth because it lowers your age by 20 years. Pious causes everyone in the group to agree with the cleric's wishes for 5 turns. They have to be reasonable things, can't be things that would cause the person to hurt themselves. Peace causes a large creature or smaller creatures to become peace-loving. They won't fight unless threatened for 10 turns. I think that would have to be sort of antagonistic monsters probably, but it could be good for sort of neutral, aligned, wild animals, that kind of stuff. But maybe you like it on all creatures. Understanding, this is a good one. Causes an ESP-like effect between everyone in your party. They can read each other's minds. Will not affect any creatures or monsters. Speak with object allows the cleric to talk to an inanimate object like a door, rock, chair, etc. He will get the answer from the thing, and there's a percentage chance, they make it level plus charisma plus 50, that the object will do a favor. For example, tell the door to lock itself. And then his 5th level, convert, will cause up to 24 levels. So 24 first level monsters or 2 12th level monsters or people to convert and become lawful good, although that assumes that's what the cleric is. But I think it would be convert to the cleric's alignment and his deity, probably. Conversion has an 80% chance of being permanent. Otherwise, it'll last for 2 to 24 months. And of course, and it lasts always for 1 hour before you get a saving throw. I don't know about that. And then finally, Chasm of opens a crevice 20 feet wide, 60 feet long, and drops people straight to you-know-where. That's what he says. I thought those were all pretty good. There was, by the way, a little note at the bottom of one of those pages saying, watch for the Judges Guild booth at Origins 78, which is going to be in Detroit. Okay, now we have those are ideas for clerics. Now we got ideas for magic users. And a funny little note here at the end. So this is Stephen Huff, notes from Turtle Dragon Castle. And he starts off by saying he thinks that magic users have the ability, like in their brain, they can sort of create compartments to hold spells. And so, first level, maybe you have 1 compartment for 1 first level spell. Then you can have 2 compartments for first level spells. This compartment concept is why he will not allow you to take a 4th level spell and use 4 first level spells, right? He's like, it's a different compartment, holds a different type of spell, different power spell, whatever. This is sort of his idea to explain. He keeps the Vancian magic system, but then he's just got his own sort of background on that. And then you can store more and more spells. The more intelligent you are, the higher the spell levels you can use. He gives you 18 or 19 intelligence can do 9th level spells, 20 and 21st can do 10th level spells. Obviously, that would require something pretty exceptional to have that. He talks about the learning process. He makes you spend 1 hour per level. So a first level spell takes an hour of uninterrupted study and preparation. A ninth level spell takes 9 hours. And so if you were an up level magic user, you would basically have to sit there for days to memorize all the spells you could theoretically cast. But in any event, that's his theory. And he's also got some ideas about how you learn your spells initially. You know, if you've got someone teaching you, if you don't, you're going to teach yourself. It takes twice as long. And then he's got these schools of magic, red magic, yellow magic, and blue magic. And over here on the right, he has these spells available to you. Remember, there weren't very many at this point in the original D&D rules anyway, but the spells that you can learn if you're in that school. And so just as an example, red magic, you can learn magic missile, shield, hold portal, detect magic, and read magic. That's the only one that can learn magic missile. Yellow magic, detect magic, read magic, sleep, light, protection from evil, and then blue magic, detect magic, read magic, read languages, charm person, and hold portal. What I like about his concept is there's a couple of exceptions, but there's certain exclusivity, right? And it looks to me like he's done this on purpose, gone through and sort of picked out what he thinks were the best or the most likely to be used spells, and he split those up. So if you want to get magic missile, you're not going to be able to get sleep and charm. You know, those are mutually exclusive spells. Fireball is an exception. 2 of the schools have fireball, and the other one has lightning bolt. But you know, one school has invisibility, and that's the only one that has it. And then one school has web, and that's the only one that has it. So I sort of liked that. And again, those are going to be the spells that you're going to be able to learn from as part of that school or guild or whatever when you move up. It's not that you can't find them in a spell book and learn them otherwise, but it's at least to some extent it's going to limit the spells you're going to be able to learn when you move up. But it also is giving you sort of a guild where you're going to have teachers you can go to in your school, and there's some spells you're going to be able to learn as you level up, right? Rather than have to find those spells on your own. That was kind of interesting, I thought, in terms of his idea. And then he has a new group of spells called utility spells, and all the schools know these, and these are his new spells. Flower summoning, summons flowers. Pet summoning, summons like a little pet, like a cat or a puppy. Special effects are like pyrotechnics or a little poof of butterflies or pigeons or songbirds will appear around you and just sort of make whatever you're doing seem a little more awesome. Heating and cooling liquid, up to a boil or down to freezing, and of course, and he will let you do this to the liquid inside a human being or a creature in their blood, right? If you heat the blood in someone's head, it'll cause their head to explode, and you freeze it, it'll likewise kill them. Enchant a drink, prevent spoilage, which is a really good thing, right? So this food won't spoil. And that'll last for a week. Minor enchantment is just animate. It's almost like animate little things, cups, pots, plates, paper. He says nothing's going to be able to do any damage, but it can distract people or just cause a commotion. And then servant summoning summons an invisible servant that can carry up to 2,000 gold pieces, but will never fight or otherwise help you in combat. It can do other little things for you. Carry this, shine my shoes, clean my house, that kind of stuff. And then there's a note at the end from Judges Guild that says, Tim Kask, editor of The Dragon, points out that mages are already too powerful, and this variant would unbalance an official D&D game. So Tim Kask gives a thumbs down on these new ideas. I'm not really sure how this makes it any more unbalanced. It didn't seem to me that any of the things he was talking about made it easier to be a magic user. So I'm not really sure what Tim was particularly unhappy with there. Tim's still around and does his video, which if you don't watch Curmudgeon in the Cellar, I think he's out every week. He's up to 300 episodes, and he just reads your comments from this week, and next week he answers your questions on his show. So maybe I'll track Tim down and see if he can't clarify this one for me. Okay, and then the last one here is a guy who has new magical items. Now these things probably, are a little too much. Well, some of them are cursed. So electric armor, +1 to +5, and anyone else who, other than the wearer who touches the armor, takes in his 7 to 42 points of damage. So that's 76. That's probably too much. Controlled armor, I didn't really understand this. Armor is intelligence, and stats a 50% chance of being evil. It gives the user, it says 1:00. So I don't know if it's taking you to 1800 strength and dexterity, or literally it takes you to a 1, which would be definitely cursed. And it says if it's evil, it causes the wearer to attack its party. Non-corrodable armor, anti-rust monster. No bonuses, but cannot be rusted. Oh no, it does have a +1. The next one has no pluses. Dragon Breath Shield completely protects you from dragon breath weapons, all dragon breath weapons, but no pluses. And then the rings, Seal of Law, will let a lawful person who's wearing it command others who are lawful to obey him. So it sort of raises your stature for people who share your alignment. People of the other alignment, though, see you also, you raise their stature, and they will attack you without a morale check. There's also a seal of neutrality and a seal of chaos, same effects. The Ring of Knowledge has 1 to 3 charges, and you can use it to find out information about an object. So I think basically the history of it, pretty much whatever I think the characters would come up with as questions. It'll take between 1 and 3 charges, DM's choice. The Ring of Spell Multiples gives you 2 or 3 times the number of spells. So just take all the number of spells you have memorized, double or triple that. That would be super powerful and desired by a magic user for sure. The Ring of Deathly Shrieking is an intelligent ring, and when it's most disadvantageous to the wearer, it will start screaming. So that would be bad for someone who's trying to sneak around. And the Ring of Spell Reversal is also cursed, and the magic user's spells have a 50% chance of, I think it's cursed. It says it gives a magic user's spells a 50% chance of backfiring. I don't think it's supposed to reflect them back on a third-party caster. I think it's cursed, and it causes you to have cast on yourself. Then you remember last time we had an article where it was like the town crier in the city-state of the Invincible Overlord giving a little snippet about some interesting piece of something going on in town that did not involve the player characters, right? So an adventure thread, a rumor, stuff like that. It's written as a little story, but here this guy's gone into a tavern and he's giving his account of this guy who came in recently, stopped at the Gouged Eye Inn, and told a tale that will chill the marrow of your bones. And he says basically this guy was from a village. The village was raided by a group of goblins and orcs that gather sacrifices for Demogorgon. And they took all the women, separated the young women from all the sort of age women, and then separated them from the men and boys. And that just a few people escaped and they went back, and they did manage to finally find the men and boys that had been separated, those who were still alive, and freed them, and they got to go back to their home village. And then the sort of fighter group continued to look, and then they did eventually find what was left of the women who were of age all the way up to 30s, 40s, 50s, and they had very unmentionable horrors that were perpetrated upon them. But they fought, and they did free those who were still alive and bring them back. They still hadn't found the really young girls. And then finally, most of those guys had been killed in raids looking for them. And there's 3 brothers. They got up they found a Demogorgon statue and an altar. And so they got up in a tree and they just waited. And after a few days of keeping watch, this caravan came down. There's a big circle of torches and a procession and a ceremony, and they see one of their sisters or some young woman that they knew being sacrificed there. So that's pretty horrible. And they said they were too few to do anything about it, and so they tried to escape. They got beset by orcs and goblins. This guy's the only one who made it back sort of to civilization, and he's told his story sort of, and there's an adventure thread, I guess, if your party of adventurers wanted to go up to where he was from and try and find these guys and free what was left of the young women. Okay, the booty list, and we are up to 59 here, and they've got the subscriptions if you want to buy the sort of the installments that were out there. We have some Grenadier miniatures, Der Klieger spells, heritage models, and now we have some game reviews. Peggy, Sue, Keith, First one is Michael Matheny's Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter Warlords of Mars Adventure Gaming Handbook, 62 pages, $7. Heritage product. It's just if you want to do basically, she says, very similar to D&D, Adventures on Mars and Barsoom. She thinks it's pretty, it's pretty well done. We have Michael Scott, who did Star Trek Adventure Gaming in the Final Frontier, also from Heritage, 39 pages, $6. And it says if you've wanted to adventure in the world of Star Trek, your time has come, and now you can play out your sci-fi role playing. Swords and Sorcery Sagas. And this is, remember, Jim England, who is the former librarian, back with more book reviews, and he says he was at the second annual Institute on Children's Literature, and they had a presentation on fantasy and children's literature, and so he has 3 books he recommends, and says, just because it's children's literature doesn't mean it's not a good book. He thinks you'll enjoy them. Joyce Ballou Gregorian wrote The Broken Citadel and Castle Down, and Gordon Dixon wrote Time Storm, and he likes all those books. We have notes from Turtle Dragon Castle, and this guy now he wants to talk to you about experience points, and and that's a pretty decent topic. And he's not a fan of people getting experience points for hauling gold up out of the dungeon. And so he walks you through what he does in his home campaign. First off, with gold or other coins, he only gives you experience points when you spend it. So you could buy yourself a new set of armor. You could build your castle stronghold. That's how you get experience points from gold. And then he gives you the normal experience points for killing monsters, but he multiplies that by 10, and then he has some other sort of, I guess, modifiers he uses based on circumstance. And so interestingly, for example, if you killed a monster from a distance, so you never really got in physical harm, he cuts your experience points for those monsters by 25%. If you were advantaged by having the use of magic armor, shields, weapons, he takes the pluses and those and 5% per plus. He adds them all up. So your magic's +2 shield, your +1 sword, +3 armor, whatever it is. He adds each plus at 5%, and then he takes 60% of that. So if you had, 3 pluses, right, that'd be 15%, and then he'd multiply that by 60%. Whatever that ends up being, and that would be a downward modifier because you had the advantage of extra magic there. And like you said, higher level characters with all kinds of magic stuff, that's going to really negatively impact the experience points because it's easier, basically. And then if you have something really good, like say a Vorpal blade or a sword of sharpness or a sword of speed, he doesn't give something specific, but he encourages the dungeon master to further, down percentage the amount of experience points that you earn. But again, for him, it's basically monster combat is how you're going to do it, and you do get that nice starting point of getting 10 times what's in the book as your starting point. Again, multiplied down for things that might advantage you. And again, he says, the dungeon master is going to have to calculate all this stuff. What I find is, I try to write out my experience points ahead of time, but in his context, then you'd have to be ready to get your calculator out and say, oh well, your fighter killed this goblin, and then he had a +1 shield, and a +1, and then you got to do a math problem, and I don't really like having to do math problems at the table to keep track of experience points. So that I don't like. I think I'd probably have to find something that was a little simpler than his. 5% times the number of pluses times 60%. That's just too much math to try and do real quick and get the experience points down and move on. Otherwise, your players are just sitting there waiting on you while you calculate experience points. Or then you've got homework to do right after the adventure's over. Neither one of those are particularly desirable in my book. But I do like the thinking about downgrading the influence of coins, and also maybe not making it just for taking it out of the dungeon and sticking it in the vault. You got to put that stuff to work. He mentions being concerned about the inflationary effects of gold in the campaign, and I get it, but I've never really seen that. I guess we don't pay enough attention to the economies in our world, so I never really had to worry about inflation because people were coming up with too much gold. All right, now they want your feedback, and it's a very lengthy survey. They're going to give you, you see what they said. They're going to give you 50 cents credit on anything you want from them if you send in your questionnaire. They ask you questions about what you play, how often you play. They want to know about what you know about their products and how much you like them. What things you are most concerned about with your products: playability, reality simulation, literary aesthetics, graphics aesthetics, and grammatical accuracy. Whether you want to see something besides sort of the, European medieval scenario setting. What's most important to you: maps, descriptions, format, quality of paper and layout, that is, counters, dungeons, campaign level, tactical level, monsters, towns, or magic. Your favorite time period: World War I, World War II, contemporary, future, medieval, ancient. Do you like to judge or play? Do you like chance or skill? Markers or miniatures? What are your favorite miniatures? Are there other miniatures you'd like us to carry? Do you own miniatures? How often do you play? How many games do you own? Who would you like to read about? Do you want more information on movies? And then what parts of our journal do you like the most? Prodigious plate mail, game reviews, movie reviews, book reviews, listing of dungeon masters, letters to the editor, information about Judges Guild business and how we run our business, like how quickly we'll deliver and our prices, coming conventions. And like this one: how would you describe us at Judges Guild? A well-run, productive, and efficient business, self-sacrificing individuals willing to serve you, a small group of enthusiastic hobbyists who have banded together, people willing to serve you only so they can make a living, or a business only out to make money. I'll be interested to see what they share in terms of the results, right? Do you share your copy of the journal with other people? How many? Do you like it like this? Do you think it should look like a magazine? Do you want to see installment material combined with the journal into just like a larger magazine? If you had to trade off, would you prefer an 11 by 17 map or 8 pages of copy? And it shows you those are really nice maps and how expensive apparently they were to create compared to the cheaper quality of just regular paper. And do you plan to resubscribe? If not, why not? So anyway, I thought that was interesting. And then finally, just because this is a little historical information, tips from the tower. In May of '78, we have 1,526 guild members. Those are subscribers. We think the quality of our product has gone up. The number of products and playing aids is being increased. And we've added staff to better serve you. A little background, Judges Guild launched by Bob and Bill. We didn't receive anything. Norma, who was the first employee, received $200. We now are paying people that work for us $3.70 an hour. Designers maybe only get $1.50 when you really consider how much time they spend away from the office thinking and working on the products. We now feel like we're paying everyone a living wage. And we're finally, creating a decent amount of revenues to operate, and we're taking all that money, he says, and putting it back into the company to hire more people to give you all better service. In fact, we've hired 2 new people: John Kiesel, graphics and layout specialist, and Bill Holzer, photography and designer. And then Brian Hennon, roving reporter. It's not really sure what he does, but anyway, they've hired 3 people, I guess. This was an interesting ad in the back for Origins 78. Remember, Origins moves around, and this time it was going to be Metro Detroit Games. And then we've got some illustrations and cartoons. So here's our comic. Oh no, says the knight, slams the door. A ball hog, and then you hear dribble, dribble, fake, dribble, fake, dribble, dribble, fake, right? Basketball. And then here's this knight by the door. He's been crushed by 2 giant D6s. And the guy says, oh no, 2 dice. And that's what dungeons are for, Mark, to thin down surplus population. I don't know. The Misadventures of the Erroneous Grog. Oh, this was the guy from page 1. One day in the dungeon, and you see this wizard's coming down the hallway, and he's killed whatever that creature was. And then at the corner, there's a frog who says croak, and he hears him, right? He's like, and then he realizes he made a noise, so he springs, he takes away, he zaps him with his wand. He says, "How I adore frog legs." More of this, and this vampire comes up out of his crypt, and he says, "You'd be grouchy too after 3,000 years of insomnia." Maybe he's supposed to be a mummy. It says "tut tut" at the end of that, and then there's like some hieroglyphic drawings on the background. In any event, he's undead. Here we have some illustrations from England. Remember, she's only, I think, a couple of issues now been here. And then this is by Rob Bledsoe Jr. And then we've got some more stuff by England and then by Winnan. And that's the drawing from the story, right, about the Demogorgon sacrifices. And then we've got this knight and just a castle. Okay, so that's it for Judges Guild Journal. You know, there's a lot of content in these little newspapers, journals that they put out. Interesting blend, somewhere between, you know, a notice and a magazine and a fanzine and a newsletter, right? In terms of the kind of stuff they have in there and how much they have. Okay, so this is, like I said, is a very different product from the things we've looked at the last couple of times. This is called Village Book 1. And as I mentioned, a similar product we'll take a look at. Similar products that were never in these installments were Castle Book 1 and Island Book 1. So we'll take a look at those on a different video. So this is based on the campaign hexagon subsystem. Remember, their maps, those big maps are all in little hexes, and every little hex is, you know, potentially have some detail. So here's this guy hanging out at the entrance to this the village. All right. This is England's art again, by the way. And remember, it says guidelines and villages on numbered hex grids. So the first two pages, they have 60 pages in here of hexes, right? So you open it up, and there's just these hexes here, and they have villages on them. We'll take a closer look at that in a second. But this is so that you can go in on the first, like the index, and put, okay, so on page 13, in my campaign, this is going to be hex number 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the name of my village. Here's its population, type, civilization, general alignment, name of the ruler, that person's level, alignment, class, and type, and resources that maybe they have a lot of iron ore, or textiles, or fishing. I don't know. That's what that's for. Again, to help the active judge populate a large area. I'll tell you what, at first this looks kind of like, I don't know what this is. When you look at it, there are actually some really good villages. And you know, your party's always going through a village, right? Just in the random wilderness. And it's great to flip through here as a dungeon master and say, you know what, I like this one, I'm inspired by it. And I found when I looked at these, very quickly you're like, oh, this is a little village, it's 8 houses or whatever, right? Here's a bigger one. Oh, this one has a wall around it. This one has some fortifications. And it very quickly, I think, sparks the imagination, which is the great thing about so many of these Judges Guild products. And they have a little table of contents. And as I say, designers, Bill Davis, Mark Summerlot, assistant designers, Bob Bledsoe, and Mark Holmer. Okay. So first we have charts, because we always want charts, right? All right, so let's roll some dice and randomly determine things. So let's start with our wall section in our streets. Die D6 to find out how many sections of wall we have, anywhere from 2 to 72. Then we get wall thickness and type, roll D6. Is it made out of earth, wood, brick, stone, marble, or is there a grate? And then how tall, you know, how thick is it? 10 feet. Well, if it's earth, then 10 to 50. And then if you roll a 6 instead of earth, it becomes wood. Same thing, right? Wood, roll 6, it becomes brick. Brick, roll 6, becomes stone. Sort of like a weird way it can. So it's most likely going to be earthen, but it can roll all the way up to being graded. But in any event, and then they say the wall height will be the thickness times 3, right? Or no, times the parentheses at the top. So a 20-foot thick earthen wall can be, could be 40 feet high. That doesn't seem right, but that's what it says. Wooden, or let's say bricks, if it's 6 feet thick, it could be 24 feet high, 4 times. Stone, 12 feet thick, it could be 36 feet high because it's times 3. And that's how you determine how high the walls are going to be. Okay, now let's let's get out a D20 and roll some characteristics. Is there secret grate? Is carvings, spikes on top, pointed top, castellated, arrow slits, crumbling, cantilevered, parapets. You got all these different things it could be. And then what kind of defenses do we have? We roll our D20. 1, none. 2, taboo symbols. 3, multiple crossbows, traps, nets, tar pits, mirrors, watching creatures, magically protected, catapults, trebuchets, dart throwers, Greek fire, different types of defenses. How many streets do we have? Let's roll a D6. 1 to 10, 1 to 20, 3 to 24, all the way up to 6 to 60. To determine the length of your street, multiply width by 20 to 200. So I'm not sure, I guess you're rolling for that too. All right, so let's look at our street type and width. Roll a D6. Start with the presumption it's a trail, but if you get a 5 or a 6, it rolls up to become dirt. Get a 6, it becomes gravel. Roll that one and get D6, it becomes wood, brick, or stone. And then it also, you have the D6 tells you how wide your street's going to be. All right, now we've got buildings. What are we going to put in here, right? Shop types. Let's find the type of shops a village will have. Note first the number of shops the population allows. So we come down to a chart. We roll a D100 for village population level, anywhere from 10 to 400. And based on that, you go anywhere, number of shops would be anywhere from 1 to 8. Okay. And then you look for the technological level of the shop, and that is based on the type of government. So you've got, you roll D12, it could be anarchy, democracy, tribal, agrarian, religious, tributary, oligarchy, republic, aristocracy, feudal, or dictatorship. 12 is a reroll. And so based on that, you come down to, there's a chart for each one of those technological or types or rulership structures, whatever you want to call it. And there's a D20 that you roll on there. Just for 4, let's say you're going to have 4 shops, you'd go to that section, D20 4 times, lumber yard, baking shop, building supplies, hourglass shop, jade shop, library, accountant, candle maker, leather maker, all kinds of different charts or types of buildings that you could have here. And finally, you've got some special buildings here, fortresses, tax offices, guard houses, temples, jails, tombs, etc. And finally, some charts to name your village. So the following 2 tables can be used with a prefix and a suffix, rolled based on your chart, and put them together, and you get a pretty good name, they say. So the first thing you do is you have 20 different prefixes. So you roll a D20 to tell you which column to go to, and then you roll a D20 to pick a word, a prefix, from that column, right? So, it's a lot of words. Every one of those almost starts with different letters, because they have a ton of them, right? And then you go here and you do your suffixes. And so for the suffixes, you roll a D6. If it's an odd number, because now we have 40 of these. If it's an odd number, you do the page 1 through 20, roll to see what column you're in, roll again to see what your suffix is. If it's an even number, you go to the second page with even, D20, go to that column, roll D20, go up and down the list and pick it. It's I guess if you're the judge and you're playing with your characters and you want them to have a random village, you open this thing up, page 22, roll. Pretty quickly you've got a bunch of information. And again, use it for inspiration, and you can always change it, whatever you don't like about it. And finally, our building types. Roll a D8. What kind of, is it a hut, a hovel, a cottage, a shop, a manor, a villa, a hall, or a palace? What's the material made out? Roll a D6. Straw, mud, wood, stone, brick, or cut stone. How tall are the rooms? Roll a D6. 4 to 24 feet. How many rooms? Roll a D20. Ground level, how big is it? Lower level, how big is it? Upper level, how big is it? You can just roll dice, get all the answers you need. Again, I think not a slave to the dice, but great ideas, great inspiration comes from this kind of stuff. So here's just an example, and I'll give you the blow up. There's your village, right? You'll back up. So there's the hex, right? You would put this as the hex somewhere on your world map if you're using their hex sheets. And it's got a stream going east to west or left to right across there, and then little dashed lines. It's got some paths or roads that come across, and there's a little bridge. You come over to this village. This one's got quite a number of buildings tucked around it, right? And then you would get out those, if you wanted to, you get out those charts and you'd roll, and you come up with what all these different buildings are for, get some sense of what kind of leadership or structures inspires the leadership of this village, and what kind of major, besides homes, what kind of major buildings are there. And this is just an example, just to show you, like I said, there's a ton of these in here, just what all the different villages look like. I think they're really cool, and they're really inspiring. And we also have some good art in this book, again, by England. You've got this, I don't know, I think it looks like a temple of some sort, and then just a little thatched roofed hut over here, or home. And then just some random stuff was stuck in here. You've got the dinosaur, and then some drawings of buildings, another little home up there, and then this person, in the cloak, who's got his little wagon. He's driving along. And then here is a stone wall protecting a village, right, with the parapet at top and vines growing up over it, and then this really funky looking dragon creature with like webbed feet, spiked tail, unicorn horn, no arms, just wings. So that's different. And then finally in the back, you've got the treasure vault, right? And now, so let me talk a little bit about this. There were two versions of this product that looked like this on the front, and the way you can tell the difference is based on this last page. So now the booty list, later on, they call it the treasure vault, and you'll see the numbering. They have a funky way they put their numbers on here. They're not just 1 to 100, but the highest number on here is 119. You can also see down here the journal. By the time this second printing happened, they're already up to journal 17, whereas today, when they sent it out the first time, it was only on 9. So you can tell from that it's later. The original printing of this was still a booty list, and it only went up through number 59, which was what these products went through. Okay. And then, so this is the printing, both the first and the second printing looks exactly the same in the front. And then the actual third printing of this same product now has a different look, has this dragon on the front cover. So that's everything that came to you in April, May timeframe of 1978 as a subscriber to Judges Guild. Fantastic products from a great company that really put out some really interesting and useful information for the hobby back in the early days. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you're enjoying the Judges Guild series that we're doing, and I hope that you're subscribed. If you have some friends who might enjoy what we're doing, please send them our way, and hopefully they'll be subscribers as well. Have a great rest of your day, and keep rolling 20s.